Hey everybody, Norm from Tested here at E3 2016. And yes, I'm standing in the Oculus booth. That means I'm going to get some Oculus demos, specifically with Oculus Touch games, Wilson's Heart, Unspoken, and even an Oculus gamepad game from Insomniac, Feral Rites. Let's jump into the demos. I'm going to give you some impressions, and we will have an interview with Palmer Luckey and Nate Mitchell. Stay tuned. All right, so the first game I played was Wilson's Heart, and this is by Twisted Pixel. It's a noir mystery game in VR with hand presence. So, of course, I'm using the Oculus Touch controllers, which abstract my hand motions and my finger positions by where I'm gripping and what fingers are on the buttons. There's also some haptic feedback. So as I'm pulling these chains right now, I can feel some vibration. As you can see, I'm experimenting with the hand presence right now. As I lift my thumb off the buttons, the thumb moves. As I press the grip, then it turns into a fist, and I can use that to then interact with these objects. It isn't like a mystery adventure game, so I'm exploring this world, and the way you explore it is through teleportation. So I see that's not actually another person. That's an indicator letting me know that I can teleport there. And so I've teleported to this new location, which then every location is like a little piece of the story, or it's a piece of the puzzle, or it gives you clues or items that can help further along. And I'm in the tutorial right now where I'm learning interaction models, and I'm actually trying to flip this page up. So there's actually a contact point on the bottom left of that page. It's highlighted, and that's where I can interact with it. The hand gets then locked onto the page, and I can move up to turn the page over. But then you saw there's actually that little ghost version of my hand. The ghost version is where my real hand is, and then when you're locked into an animation, like when you're holding a door handle or something. Not every one of these teleportation nodes will have puzzles or have a ton of things to interact with. Sometimes it's just getting around the world, but sometimes it is moving along the story. Now, I moved ahead along here not to spoil the story, but there is your classic VR looking into the mirror experience. And so that's your character. The part of the story is you're trying to figure out why you're in this hospital and what's happened to you so far. And I do like that there is body presence here with the shadows, with the reflection, showing your forearms and your hands. And there you see the ghost hand again as my hand gets locked in. The in-game model gets locked into the animation when I'm grabbing that faucet handle. But then as I move my real hand further away, you see the ghost version of the hand. I actually like how that keeps you immersed while you have these interaction models. A lot of items in this game world are highlighted, let you know that you can interact with them, and the physics work well so far. You can pick things up, toss them around, and also find things like keys, which then you can put into the top right-hand corner of the screen, which is an inventory. So much like point-and-click adventure games, you're finding things, finding keys, finding clues, putting them in an inventory, and then that progresses you further into the game. Here's another part of the game where the hospital is supposed to be pretty big. Lots of rooms. Some of the rooms are locked, of course. You have to find the keys. Um, there's a lot more to the game. I think there are some startling moments that reminded me of BioShock, but uh, it also reminds me a lot of like a classic adventure game. But instead of moving a mouse around and pointing and clicking, you're moving your hand around and finding objects and interacting with them, like these bottles. I can't wait to play this game. It looks like a lot of fun and definitely has a lot of atmosphere. The next game I played is another Oculus Touch game. This is The Unspoken. It's made by Insomniac Games, and again, I'm experimenting with that hand presence, moving my thumbs, seeing if there's parity between the two Oculus Touch games I played. Like, what are the gestures that the controllers can do, and whether these gestures are something that can be abstracted with other touch controllers. Like, these are Oculus exclusive games, so you can't actually do these with HTC Vive. This is what Insomniac calls like Fight Club, but with magicians. So it's actually a multiplayer VR combat game, and you have your hand here. You're a magician, and you have like a shield in one hand. On the other hand, you can throw fireballs. So of course, I wanted to see if the physics worked well, and it's really satisfying when the physics work the way you expect. So I'm flinging my wrist out, and I wanted to see, is it the arc of my throw that determines the trajectory, or is it the velocity? Because those are two things that the game and the controller knows. And I think it's more velocity because I could fling my wrist really short distance and still get really long throws. So I'm just experimenting with that right now. In addition to these basic powers that you have, and there will be a bunch of different characters with different powers, There are also special abilities. So I can pull them up on my left hand and activate them. Each of these special abilities are kind of like very simple mini games. There's drawing with a marker. If you draw a box, you create a shield. If you tap the edges of a sheet of paper, you create a paper airplane, which you then throw. It turns into like an A10 warthog. Or you can use a hammer, smash an anvil on 3 basic points to time it right, and it turns it into a javelin. I like that these spell mini games, whether they're gesture based or very simple tap actions, were kept simple because then it's not as mentally taxing. Because there's a lot going on right now. You got to be situationally aware of where your enemy is, where you are in the world. You do teleport between these nodes, between these pillars, which are of different elevations, and you also have to look for cover. And so there's a lot going on, and I'm happy that it's making use of these gesture systems and these fun mini games like this hammer. Just hitting them, I'm missing them right now because I'm worried about whether I'm going to get hit by the enemy, and so it's going to take a lot of practice. There's also cover-based systems. You can see there's like a plank of wood on the pillar below me. I'm going to teleport down there, and then once I'm down there, then I'm dodging around it. You can destroy the objects or the obstacles. I'm really excited about the social aspect of this game, this being a multiplayer VR game. There will be AI as well. The enemy I'm playing against here is actually AI, but with the microphone built into the headset, you have instant communication that's built into the game. That's the Unspoken. It reminded me a little bit about the HTC Vive game Waltz of the Wizard, in that physics-based superpowers are really, really satisfying. And I can't wait to try the other characters that are in the full version, each with their own abilities. And finally, the last game I played is actually a gamepad game, also made by Insomniac, and it's Feral Rites. And this is a game that I was actually least impressed by in my demo time at the Oculus booth. It really is emblematic of a kind of game that I think people complain doesn't need to or didn't need to be in VR at all. It's a third-person brawler with a fixed camera system, so it's a lot like Chronos. Except I think the camera implementation here wasn't really it's not really well thought out. You're always fixed behind your character, and as you see, it's mostly combat based. So I'm fighting enemies, and as I beat them to the edge of the screen, the character gets further away from me, and I lose sight of them, or they can get occluded behind other in-game models. Um, that those flames you see, the blue flames in the front and the back, those indicate kind of the boundaries of this part of this camera. So while the map can be very big, it's split into these small areas, and then I can move past the one in the back, and the camera jumps forward, and then if I go backwards, then the camera sometimes flips back around or sometimes shows it in the same orientation. When you're in combat, though, then you can't knock an enemy into the next area. So that is a nice part of it. The theme of the game is that you can transform into animals, into beasts, and there are some nice fatality animations, kill moves in the beast mode. And in the time I spent with it, the map was it was interesting to explore, but really is just a brawler. It's all about getting those combos, hitting your blocks up, and there you see I'm in that beast mode. Um, there's a lot more to this game, but it really wasn't the game I was most impressed with in this demo time. So let's jump to our interview with Palmer and Nate. All right, you guys know the drill. I'm here with Nate Mitchell and Palmer Luckey of Oculus. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
You guys have a product out in the market. I'm doing well too. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's got to get to the questions. You guys launched the Rift, but I would love to hear your thoughts and share your thoughts on the launch.
I mean, there's always things we could have done better, but I think generally launch is going really well. We're shipping tons of hardware, we're shipping tons of content. More and more people are using Rift every day. I think our biggest thing right now is getting caught up on the back orders. Trying to get caught up with, so then all the people who want to have a Rift get it, because there's so many people out there who want to get their hands on it, and we know they really want it.
So what's the status right now in terms of both the pre-orders, and if you buy one right now, how long will it take, both domestically and internationally?
It depends on where you are, so there's no one answer, but we're hoping to catch up pretty soon. But like right now, I think if you order one right now, I think the official word is that you're going to get one in August, and we of course always try to move faster than we promise.
And we are We are expecting to be caught up in July.
Okay. And you guys, when the Rift launched, and you guys,
I wasn't gonna say that, but yeah, I think we should do that. But the official word is, if you order one right now, we're saying you will get one by August. But we're hoping that we get caught up earlier. Hopefully things move faster and faster, because we're always trying to ramp up production and keep up with demand.
You guys were transparent as you could be about with the launch and those growing pains. And you mentioned there was potentially a component shortage. Can you clarify any of that? What the issue might have been?
We really can't go into it a lot more than that. We have pretty good relationships with our suppliers, and we don't want to damage those. In this case, we just, we didn't have as much of a component as we needed. It caused us to fall behind in terms of where we wanted to be in production, and definitely slowed us down. And we've got that problem solved. We're actually back in a really good place. And again, the team's sort of cranking on overdrive to get all caught up on web pre-orders as fast as we can.
And just to add to that, you mentioned that we're being as transparent as we can. To be transparent as we can, we aren't always as transparent as we can be. There are things that we could say, but like Nate mentioned, we have to respect our partners. We have to kind of keep things going. There are lots of the ways that we could be transparent, but those aren't the best ways to do the right thing for our customers, or the right things for the VR industry, or the right thing for Oculus, or really anything else. So we're as transparent as we should be. Maybe not as much as we hypothetically could be.
Well, in terms of VR industry now, you guys there are platforms out there now. So you guys are a platform. There are games on the platform. Some of them are exclusive. Some are being across other devices. And there's been some talk about what the developer relationship is like. You guys have talked about paying for exclusives for games that would not exist if you guys didn't support them through Oculus Studios. What is that relationship, and what is the stance on games being shared across different VR platforms?
So I think there's a bunch of questions in there. With Oculus Studios, we're basically creating new games from scratch. We're going out there, we're fully funding titles, we're working with developers, and I think the results of that are pretty clear. If you go on the Oculus Store, there's a ton of great Oculus Studios games like Chronos, games like Lucky's Tale. Edge of Nowhere just launched from Insomniac, super excited about that.
It's doing really well.
Yeah, and it's doing really well in the store. So that's definitely a key part of our strategy. Again, these games wouldn't exist if we weren't going out working with these developers. And ultimately, we build these games to make sure that Rift customers have great VR experiences, high budget VR experiences where developers can take bigger risks and really further the platform. There's been a lot of talk additionally about exclusivity and sort of like timed exclusives recently. Sure. Honestly, there's a lot of confusion out there today about some of the articles that have been posted sort of this morning and yesterday. We're working on getting those clarified as fast as we can. But at the high level, there are always developers who are coming up to us asking or discussing with us whether we want to provide additional funding to them to basically make their games bigger or better in a lot of cases. And in a lot of cases, during those discussions, we also talk not only about providing funding, but having them actually debut on our platform on Oculus first. Of course, those titles in many cases are going to go to other platforms over time, but again, that's just something that we sort of put out there for developers if they're interested. And again, in many cases, they really have this vision of developing and producing this incredible core product, what they want to ship right out the gate, and they can't achieve that without potentially some additional funding. So we're always talking with developers about that sort of thing. Every single deal with every developer is different. And again, that's something we're sort of continue to explore.
Is it more instances where you are going to developers, or developers are coming to you?
I mean, it's really both. I'd say that most of the time when we're going to a developer, that tends to be more of a studios thing, where we're going and we're working with them to basically make first-party content. For a lot of these things, it really is devs coming to us, and not just saying, hey, we want to make our games better, faster, but in many cases saying, hey, we need help just to get the game done, period. And there's a lot of games where even though they're not studios titles, there are games that wouldn't exist as they do today if it weren't for us stepping in and really helping make that happen. And in those cases especially, it really helps not just us, but really anyone on any platform when those games get made, because they're going to come out first on Oculus, and we're going to help them do that, but we don't stop them from developing for other platforms. We don't tell them to stop developing for other platforms, and those other platforms are going to get these games. They're going to get better games that either wouldn't have existed or wouldn't have been as good if we didn't make that investment, and they're going to get them a few months later. But overall, I think it really is a good thing for our customers, but also for the entire VR industry.
In terms of talking about the platforms, from your perspective, is the platform the headset, or is the platform the store? And
the platform, it's not just store versus headset. There's a lot of other stuff tied into that. Like the friends list, the platform services that you provide to developers so that they can do things like build social content without having to rebuild everything themselves. I'd say that generally the platform is all of the stuff that sits underneath to serve the hardware. I mean, very much, like the Oculus platform runs on Samsung's Gear VR. Like in that case, Gear VR isn't our product, that's a Samsung product, but it's powered by the Oculus platform, and that's still very important to us. We want to make things so that people can be successful on mobile, we want people to make people successful on PC, and we want them to be able to do that using the Oculus platform, and the store is part of that platform.
Yeah, I would just add to that, we think about products as hardware, software. We talk about the platform. It's the ecosystem, it's the users, it's the store, it's everything, all the services, all the back end too, the games as well. And so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a platform. And again, we are going to continue to invest in bringing more great content to the platform. We think that's super important to making A, VR gaming take off, and B, just accelerating the timeline for that to happen, right? Because instead of having sort of really small indie studios only being able to launch very small games, we're going to continue to pour significant resources and investment into this to accelerate that so you have bigger budget games on VR headsets sooner.
One way to bootstrap that is to get on consoles, and Microsoft did this week announce Project Scorpio. You guys already have a third-party hardware partner in Samsung. Are you going to be pursuing more partnerships like that where you're not necessarily making the hardware?
I wouldn't say it's out of the question, but we don't have anything to announce at this time.
But we do have a good we do have a good relationship with Microsoft. There's an Xbox One gamepad in every Rift, so we do get along really well with those.
Minecraft.
Yeah, we have Minecraft on Gear VR and also on Rift. But yeah, we don't have anything to announce right now. But I do think that console is going to be a big part of the VR market. That aside, Sony's showing off a lot of new content that they're doing in VR, and I think most of the big VR players, whether it's console or anything else, most of the big players are really investing in making sure there's an ecosystem, even though the market is really small. I mean, it's very, very small today relative to the whole console games industry or the PC games industry, but most of the serious players understand that, and they're doing what it takes and putting their money where their mouth is and doing what it takes to kickstart that, kind of make that wheel spin.
Let's talk about Touch, because Touch is it coming out later this year? Hopefully,
right.
That's it. Yes, still coming out later this year.
Yes, Touch is coming out later this year.
And you guys announced 30 titles
absolutely.
for that launch. But you're still also pushing support for games that will be playable with gamepad. Feral Rites being shown here from Insomniac. How do you approach that? 1 year later, are we all playing Touch games? What's that distribution going to be like?
That's actually a really good question for our head of content, Jason Rubin. I think that my perspective is that we're going to see a healthy mix of both. I think there's a ton of developers out there who are super passionate and super excited about developing for touch. Hand presence really is part of the magic of VR, being able to have not only feel like these are your hands, like true hand presence, but being able to reach out and naturally interact with objects in the world. There's a ton of developers who are really excited about designing games around that.
Will that be market driven at all? If consumers just flock to touch and everyone's only playing touch games?
I think it's possible.
It will be somewhat market driven, but at the same time, these games are being made now. We've decided what's important for touch, and we have all of this, stuff that's built around hand presence and built around being able to track the pose of the hand. You can't just launch something and say, hey, what does the market want? Well, maybe we'll start making some content based on that. We really have to show people why it is that they should want this stuff, and we can only do that by starting to invest in it now. That's why we're showing. Well, we announced we're doing 30 touch games at launch, 20 of which are new games that are being built around touch specifically to really take advantage of all the things that hand presence has to offer.
Those 20 games, are they going to use things on the touch controllers that aren't available on other track controllers that you guys have?
All of the games on touch are taking, I think almost every one of those 30 games is taking advantage of touch in some way, but I'm saying those games are specifically built around touch, and they're using it in ways that you can't really, they're using hand presence in ways you just can't get on any other platform right now.
I was just going to add one thing whenever you're ready.
Sure. So I'd say we've started making this stuff now because we have to show people why they want it. We can't just let the market tell us what they want and then get there a year or two later. It takes a long time to make this content. We've been building touch content for years now. Touch existed a long time before it was actually publicly announced, and many of these deals and developers we're working with, we've been talking with them about how to solve these problems since long before we showed anything publicly, and it's only just now starting to become public, and I think that's the reason you're seeing so much in the way of full polished games, not tech demos, coming out on touch and being shown because they've had time to really figure out how to make these types of games.
Yeah. We're really focused on making sure there are great sort of full titles available for gamepad and for touch in a big way. And just back to your question, I do think there's going to be a huge amount of gamepad titles still coming available. I think part of that is because of the other platforms supporting gamepad, like Gear VR, right? We're having a lot of gamepad content from Gear VR come over.
Or PSVR.
Or PSVR as well. And so I think there's going to be this awesome, healthy mix of different input devices. But
Are
yeah,
you
I think
encouraging developers to do that, what the Climb is doing, for example, launch on gamepad and have a track controller version?
It's really game specific. Like I originally thought that the Climb wouldn't be nearly as good with gamepad, and then I played it and I was like, oh my god, I actually even like this maybe even better with gamepad. Personally, that's just me. So I think it's sort of a developer to developer basis.
Yeah, I really think that it is a developer-to-developer basis. Even though we have touch out there, like to be clear, there are people that are starting work on games that are made for gamepads, not touch. Not every game out there needs or wants to have hand gestures or motion controls or anything at all. And that's especially true when you look at games that are designed maybe around gamepad, but optimally for things like like flight controls or for steering wheels. In that case, they're really not even thinking about touch at all because it's just not at all the right fit for their game. And so you're going to see people making things for gamepad and touch. It's not going to be some shift where touch is better than a gamepad for everything. You're going to see people using both.
I think it's fair to say that overall the best Oculus experience is going to be with headset and touch controllers. In general, so what are you guys doing?
I really would challenge that. I think many of the best experiences will be on that.
But it's not considered the premium Oculus experience.
But like I would say you can definitely have a premium Oculus experience, maybe one of the best experiences without touch. Like if you're playing Elite Dangerous and you've got a full flight, full sim pit, I would argue that is better than many touch experiences. I mean, you don't have to have touch to make a premier experience or a deluxe experience or whatever it is. You can make a good game. And then like for games like, let's say, a kart racing game or something, or even a platformer, in many of those cases, you don't have to design around motion controls for it to be a premier experience. You can design really good stuff. I agree, I think that most of the best content is going to end up using touch because it's so unique and you can do these incredible things with your hands that you can't do anywhere else. But I would challenge that it has to be touch to be the best. I think we're going to see incredible stuff that has nothing to do with touch.
I think that's right.
How big of a priority is it for you guys then to get touch in the hands of people who already own the Oculus? And would you be doing anything to make sure that happens in terms of aggressive pricing, availability?
That is the number one goal, is getting it in the hands of people who already have Rifts. Those are the people who can use touch right now. It's a lot easier to sell and make. It's a lot easier to make and get touch to somebody who has a Rift and convince somebody to buy both at the same time. Like that, our number one priority is serving the customers that have already bought the Rift, already supported us, that are already really in this ecosystem.
No expected component shortages with touch? You know how many Rifts are out there.
I'm feeling really good about touch.
Yeah. No, I would just add to that, we are feeling really good about touch, and we're sort of working in overdrive right now, not only on the hardware side, but the software side, getting everything in place, content, the platform, everything. It's going to be a great launch.
Awesome. What are the games you guys are most excited for on touch
that
you've announced so far?
Okay, so just for me, I'm excited about a bunch of games, but I was absolutely blown away by the Wilson's Heart E3 demo that we have. I saw a very early build a long time ago, and I was like, wow, I love this the style, sort of the direction Twisted Pixel's taking this, but I don't know if they're gonna nail it. And oh my god, I tried the demo on Friday, and I was just totally blown away. The atmosphere, the interactions, it feels so good. I actually bumped into the guys here. I was like, guys, you guys have just nailed it. So I'm super excited for Wilson's Heart.
And Palmer?
I like Wilson's Heart too. I really like Ripcoil and Dead and Buried. I'm a very competitive.
Dead and Buried,
yeah. Dead and Buried is really good. I actually probably like Dead and Buried more than some people because I am very good at Dead and Buried, and so for me it's just a blast. Like I'm like, this game's incredible because I do so well. But we should play. We should play. We should play Dead and Buried.
We should get friends. And speaking of friends, one last question.
We can play in this pod and everybody can look at it. But
when
those are probably two of my favorites.
More updates to Oculus Home, more features to the friends list, more social stuff.
I was just gonna say we're shipping updates every single month. The next update for Rift is shipping, I think next week, the June update. So there's going to be stuff rolling out constantly, so expect to see some of that evolve quickly over the next few months. We do have, frankly, a good portion of the team right now focused on getting some of the touch stuff just nailed down. But yeah, we're moving fast. We're sort of, the team's executing, cranking on all cylinders to ship new stuff as fast as they can.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for the time, guys.
Thank you.
Nate Mitchell, Palmer Luckey from Oculus here at E3 2016. Thanks.